Thank you for joining us. I am Carol Meyers, and I am very privileged to be the host today of Sotero's Fireside Chat. The topic that we're going to talk about today, enabling secure data sharing for the marketing industry, could not be more timely. In July of this year, Europe's top court ruled that US and EU data flow agreement, known as Privacy Shield, does not safeguard the rights of EU citizens. And this decision left more than 5,000 companies that had signed up for Privacy Shield in a very precarious position. Individual EU companies are now free to enforce GDPR as they see fit, as they want to. But really, it's more than just GDPR and the disappearance of Privacy Shield. Around the world, organizations, probably like yours, that rely on data to drive their business forward are being buffeted by new and complicated rules that are enacted by countries as well as individual states. Now, at the same time, consumers are expecting, and not just expecting, but demanding increased personalization. And they're voting with their dollars for providers who are able to give them that personalization. They want their software providers, their retailers, their advertisers to know them. They want companies to anticipate their needs and provide them with just the right offer, curated product offerings, and location-based services. And all of those personalization functions require excellent and often very personal data. And in fact, 3,000 consumers across the US, China, and France, so it is a global phenomenon, confirmed that 83% are expecting excellent personalization. Accenture also ran a survey that found that 91% of consumers favor brands that offer them personalized recommendations. Now, in spite of all this desire for personalization, consumers also don't trust their vendors or marketers with their data. A survey conducted by McKinsey found that consumers were most comfortable sharing their data with financial services and healthcare providers. Now, that's a good thing, but even those industries only received a trust rating of 44%, 44% out of 100. And the picture became even more bleak when McKinsey looked at other industries. Pharma came in next after those first two industries, but with just half the amount of trust, only 22% trust rating. And then it spiraled down from there with consumer product goods, media and entertainment, oil and gas, all receiving just a 10% trust rating. So you can see this is quite a conundrum. Consumers are expecting fantastic personalized experiences and services. The level of personalization that we as consumers are requiring means we need excellent data and analytics. But on the flip side, consumers and regulatory bodies across the world are also expecting us to protect that data. So today we're going to talk about those trends and some of the new breakthrough technologies that are designed to help solve this conundrum. And joining me today, we have three terrific panelists: Patrick Dineen, the global CIO of Nielsen; George Coruguedo, the CTO and founder of Redpoint Global; and Purandar, the CEO of Sotero and the former CTO of both Info Group and Epsilon. So welcome, Pat, George, and Purandar. Really glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Right. So we're going to dive right into our first question for our panelists. So you are all incredibly busy professionals, of course, with very heavy day jobs, but you wanted to make the time to talk about this topic of cybersecurity in this new brave world of marketing and data sharing. Why do you think this issue is so important, and what does the industry need to be paying attention to? And if you don't mind, I'll start with you, Pat, if that's okay.
It's never been a more challenging and opportunistic or opportunity-filled environment for companies in our industries that are trying to figure out the best use of consumer information. The data that we have access to today has never been more relevant, time-sensitive, granular, specific. Retailers with purchase data, shopping cart information, in-store, locational, website usage, mobile location, advertising exposure. The information, the great information we have access to is exploding. But it's also never been more precious and proprietary and dangerous and competitive. So that's why I think there's a great conversation today in terms of why I've been attracted to Sotero. And I should comment, I'm acting today on my 30 years of experience working in this industry. As Nielsen CIO, we don't comment on the specific nature of our own technologies for security and the like. So I'm speaking from my heart, not necessarily from my experience at Nielsen. But our industries, all of our industries, can benefit and grow if we can find accepted norms for how consumer information can be leveraged and combined and analyzed in ways that consistently and securely protect privacy and also keep us within the good deemed regulatory requirements that you spoke about in Europe and other places. But that's super hard. Trust is a currency, and it's in low supply. I think Sotero has a great opportunity to help a variety of industries by helping create that norm.
And George, you of course are no stranger to marketing data, data sharing. You serve, a lot of companies that seek to use their data more to better gains. Tell us a little bit about why this topic is important to you.
Well, thank you, Carol. So it's really the heart of what we do at Redpoint. We are in the enterprise personalization platform game. We work with very large enterprises across healthcare, financial services, retail, and others. And those stats that you mentioned at the beginning really rang true because everybody is really focused on customer experience and perfecting the customer experience. And that ultimately is dependent on perfected data. And, we work a lot around fixing the data and all of that. But the bottom line is, it's all about the data. And often the data is getting up real close to that edge of your security perimeter. There's also all sorts of regulatory schemes like GDPR, and certainly in healthcare, there's a tremendous level of concern over the privacy of patients and so on. And so how do you respect that privacy and personalize at the same time? And it's really a challenge. And I'll give you an example. We're working with one of the leading cancer centers in the United States, and they want to make their experience, the patient's experience on their website, actually part of the therapy, where they're educating the patient on how to live better, eat better, and complement their therapy to the greatest level possible through a highly personalized journey within their website. Well, that requires access to everything from PII to their actual clinical records. And so in order to do that in a way that is at once respectful of their privacy, but at the same time delivers that really high quality experience, there has to be a way of dealing with that data easily and flexibly. And that's why my focus and my interest in this is because it's the very core of what we do. And again, we have found that what we are working with Sotero, a very complete and easy to apply solution, because some of the gymnastics that companies go through to try to secure data is just unbelievable. And this really makes it a really straightforward approach and simplifies a lot of things for us.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. So Purandar, just quickly for you too, you experienced this challenge firsthand a lot, and it actually caused you to try to do something about it. Tell us a little bit about what your experience was and what led you to a new path for data security.
So as you mentioned, I've been the CTO of two of the largest marketing service companies, managing, processing, acquiring, and staging, managing hundreds of millions, if not billions of consumer records, right? My experience was losing my data in a data breach, having a fake false tax return filed to generate a return, half a dozen credit card applications, and a bank account opened. I was the lucky recipient of a debit card for the account they opened. So that got me thinking about what companies could do that enable them to protect what mattered most, which both Pat and Georgia mentioned. It's the data. So security for a long time has revolved around limiting access to data, but not protecting the data itself, right? And there's two aspects to that. One is everybody focused on security in a siloed data store, because that was the world of the past. People didn't share data. There was not like the need to protect data movement across ecosystems or across partners things didn't exist. So they all focused on keeping data protected when it was rest in a single data store. That is obviously not the case, because the whole value of data is in sharing it, monetizing it, and the ability to analyze it and use it, right? The number of sources that generate data now is just monumentally large. It's growing exponentially, whether it's IoTs, your mobile devices. So when you look at the industry today, the security products don't help you protect data in motion, right? We had two challenges that we wanted to solve: make it easy for enterprises to build trust and protect data, but also be able to scale it and use it across complex ecosystems. And that required us to approach this in a completely different way. So make it easy for it to be consumed. So it could scale, fit into any existing platform or application framework without changes, right? As soon as you mention complex integration and changes, people just walk away from it saying, we can't manage this. The second thing is also enable multiple parties, two or more parties, to collaborate on a set of data, shared data, without violating security or privacy. That's why we came up with the whole notion of Sotero.
Okay, that's great. Great. Thank you. I think that will really set the stage for everyone. So before we jump into the next question, I'd love to do the poll that we have, poll number 1. And so this is for all of you in our audience. We're going to pop that up, and if you could just answer that for us, that would be great. Got that popped. There we go. All right. So the question is, how do you feel data security impacts your business growth? Does it help you meet demand from your clients? Is it important to closing business with new clients? Does it help you improve or increase your service for clients? Or is there something else that makes security impact your business? And I think, Purandar, you might be the only person who can see the results coming in. So
Yep, I am seeing it.
how we doing?
Pretty good. Lots of responses. We'll give it a few more seconds before we start.
That wouldn't let me. So panelists,
Yeah, we're not allowed. We're not allowed.
I would think all of these, right? It's hard. I don't know which one of these to emphasize, but it'd be interesting to see what the attendees are thinking.
You might be able to.
Demand for security and privacy is the #1 response.
Okay, great. That's great. Thank you. All right. So following on that, privacy is being more regulated than it has been. And my experience in having worked in cybersecurity for almost a decade, and prior to that, having worked in marketing automation, is that it can make or break the perception of a brand, depending on how people see you, how secure you are, and whether or not you have breaches. So my question for our panelists is, have you seen an increase in the collaboration between marketers, business leaders, and chief security officers, who in my prior history didn't always interact all that much? And so should cybersecurity and privacy be part of what marketers and business leaders take on as some of their responsibility? You know, what would good look like in that sort of collaboration? And we can leave that open for any of you to jump in on.
Well, I'll jump in more and more, as you know. So we deal with marketers. Those are our natural clients that we work with all the time, and there isn't a discussion that we have these days that does not include what level of support we have for either CCPA or GDPR or HIPAA or FCRA. So one of whatever the appropriate privacy scheme is relevant to their industry, in every marketing communication we have, that is a central focus and absolutely one of the must-haves in every discussion of technology and capabilities around personalized marketing and so on. So it's there, and I think it's there to stay.
Carol, I'll jump in here. Those two questions about the increased collaboration between marketers and tech leaders and security officers. Absolutely. There's no getting around that those three parts of the corporation have to talk together. Good looks like very simple. Think about this like you would in your own consumer life. You feel happy about working with companies that do what they say all the time, are super transparent and clear about what they do and don't do, and yet are still super useful and helpful for you. You know when they have your information and they use it perfectly. You know what that feels like. You also know when you are on the internet and you Google something and you see ads for it for the next month. Everyone talks about it. That's creepy. So that's not good. And we have the technology, and if those three folks in organizations cooperate, you can get to good. But good also looks like zero security breaches. And that's not easy. And that takes money, and it takes money up front. It's not reactive, it's proactive. And you combine those two things, creepy kills trust, and then bad data sharing and use practices not only lead to creepy and eroding trust, but also open you up to the bad guys. Technology needs to step up here and needs to step up at scale. And just as George said before, if everything has to be its own unique bespoke pyramid of technology cost, marketers are going to give up and they're going to go back to their old ways. And that's not what we want to do.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And I think, I think one of the things that's been interesting, it's great to hear, George, that you see those people coming to the table together, but things have changed a lot. And I think sometimes people's headsets around security and data haven't kept up with the times. I remember when I was in marketing automation way back when, people would say, oh, they collect, marketing companies are collecting so much data about us. And I would joke and say, yeah, they don't even know what to do with it, which was the bad case, right? We were all collecting a lot of data and the customers getting no value. But today, I think consumers are getting value, but I'm not sure everyone has really understood some of the ways the collection, the use, and the sharing of data have changed over the last decade, in particular, because there's been so many changes. What are some of the most important trends that you're seeing that marketers and cybersecurity folks really need to make sure they're aware of and up to speed on?
Well, from my perspective, I think the companies that, at least from my experience, seem to do the best job are the companies that first and foremost understand what and embrace what their brand promise is, right? Because it's really easy to get creepy if you're stepping outside of that boundary, right? People come to a brand expecting a certain type of engagement, right? Whether it's healthcare or Keurig, and coffee or whatever it might be. And if you start stepping out of that, it gets really a little weird. So respecting that and understanding that and respecting it and adhering to it, I think is a part of it. The other trend that I see that I really like is that people are getting much more creative about how they do personalization and much more ambitious about how they do personalization, because it used to be that before, if they got your name right on when you hit a web page and maybe offered you something that you might like, that was enough. But you still got the redundant emails and you got the redundancy and other things that kind of create friction and frustration. And I'm happy to say that the technology is supporting better practices around it, but the marketers are really requiring it and thinking about it and really trying to take that friction out of the system. So that of course, requires, again, having all of that data at the ready and having it available at a very high cadence, a very high availability, all sorts of things that then also get it really close to the edge, right? I always think of it as proximity to that security perimeter, right? And the closer you get, the easier it is to get to it, right? So, you know, I think that's a really good trend, but I think it can be a little scary if you don't have technologies that help you secure the data in a way that makes that safe to utilize it that way.
There's also this notion of giving information away, and I don't mean that in a privacy context, but if I am a media company or a retailer or a bank, I have really great information about what consumers do on my properties, in my stores, on my websites, with my mobile apps, incredibly useful information. And I know I can multiply the value of that if I'm able to bring it together with other information. 20 years ago, we could just call up an Axiom or an Experian or somebody and get an address match and append 100 demographic variables. And some of them were good, some of them weren't, but it helped us. And it was no big deal. You could do that almost overnight. Now marketers are much more concerned about giving their precious jewels away. We have the emergence of walled gardens, and those walled gardens exist because they don't want to let their great precious information just go and lose the value of it. So there's the conundrum. If I have precious data from my experience with customers, and I know somebody else has also precious information, and the two things together can actually make for a much better relationship with that customer. How do you do that? How do you do that at scale so that nobody feels like they're giving away their crown jewel?
Well, if I may, I've got a great example of exactly that. We are working with a healthcare pharmacy company that, you know, retail and pharmacy and everything. And one of the areas that is incredibly costly in the healthcare industry are billing errors, right? When they have to call you up and correct something about your record. And there's been lots of discussions happening in the healthcare industry about pooling insurance data and then cleansing it and making it available to healthcare organizations so that they can get the correct billing information for everyone and take that excess out of the system, because it actually costs billions of dollars of time and energy and effort. And while there's a tremendous drive and benefit and increase in customer benefit, companies are terrified of doing it for the exact reason that Pat was saying. They don't, you know.
Uh-oh.
So as we're waiting for George to come back,
Yeah.
I'll just add a couple of things, right? I mean, so if you go back, you said how has data collection changed and what the issue is. If you go back to the old optimization approach, it was collect all the data, small set of attributes, took forever to optimize the thing because it was an analytical process that ran forever. And a lot of companies didn't even bother to use it because it was caused so much friction and it slowed everything down. In today's environment, you're getting n times the data, but the decisioning time is down to milliseconds, right? And that requires scale from a technology perspective. Absolutely, that has evolved. What hasn't evolved is the ability to keep that data secure and protect all of the participants. And it goes back to the example that Pat brought up. Like back in the days, a data append was you just FTP'd a file over, right? They appended it, sent you back. Nobody worried about the privacy and the security. You just assumed that the other party would keep it secure. Today, that's not acceptable because companies want to control and be in charge of securing their customer information because, as Pat pointed out, it's incredibly valuable. That is the whole idea that we operated on, and that's common to every industry that you can think of. Data sharing is such a key part of practically any industry you think of, but we're trying to build a platform that enables them to do it securely and stay in control.
Okay. What is it that makes it so challenging to secure data? I think there's the company data, there's the sharing of the data, and then I even see challenges within companies to use data in an omni-channel environment. So there's challenges to getting the data where it needs to be, and then I think there's the security challenges. So why is it so challenging to secure our data? And Purandar, I think following on to what you were just saying,
Yeah.
what are the things you see? And then Pat, I'd love you to jump in on that too.
There's a couple of trends that have led to this situation, right? I mean, one is the explosion of new technology or the evolution of technology. Doing things at scale, doing things fast requires companies to adopt either a third-party platform or various technologies that don't have security built into it. That adoption or ecosystem has gotten to be a lot more complex than it did in the past, right? I mean, it's incredibly complex ecosystem that data moves through to enable companies to use and act on it. Going back to what I said at the beginning, earlier generation of security products focused on one thing, protecting data in a siloed data store. That's what it was all about. But that doesn't work here because the whole value of data is its ability to move and to be accessed and acted upon by various parties. That requires a different approach where you can keep data protected, but still enable participants to act on that protected data and the scale and the speed. All of this is what has led to this current situation of legacy approaches and older generation products not really being applicable at all.
Yeah. You make me think about sort of an existential view of the marketing information industry. It used to be there were a few companies that were marketing information companies. They were the credit bureaus, it to some extent, and then the Axions and Experience of the World, things of that nature. And now everyone's a marketing information provider. All the media companies, yes, they provide media, but they are in the information business. Who are their viewers? Who sees their ads? All of that. Every retailer arguably is just as much in the business of managing information about the customers as they are merchandise. Insurance companies, banks, you can go on and on. Everyone is in the marketing information business. So it's not just about going and buying from a few companies to enhance your marketing database and then running your analyses. Now, we need to share information, maybe even with folks that are somewhat competitive. And in this world, as I said before, you get into this, am I giving my information away? Am I giving my competitive advantage away by combining my data with somebody else? So that's where you can create, you get into this remarkably, these backwards gymnastics moves to try to enable the sharing of information. And that's an incredible cost. So there's an opportunity in the years ahead for there to be a utility in this industry to make that a non-issue, to make it that, yes, I can share my customer information in a privacy compliant way, in a secure way, in a way that I know I'm not giving it away, but I can get something out of it that I need to make a better experience for my customers. And I can do that at scale. And I don't have to create a pyramid every time to do it. That's, I think, what we're talking about here. Is there a utility role? And again, technology, I think, can step up to do that. And that's what's so promising about the conversation here with Sotero.
Oh, that's great. I want to move to what you're excited about. But before we do that, because we've been talking very much here about the security, Pat, you've joined the advisory board of Sotero, and you touched on some of the excitement around what they're doing. And George, you as well are partnering with Sotero for your customers. What is it about Sotero's approach to encryption and data security that you found most attractive and that you found most differentiating for yourself or for your customers?
Well, speaking for us at Redpoint, two things about Sotero really stood out. One is the ease with which we can apply it, right? Because we deal with every type of database engine. We deal with data streaming or through an API, or, there's every vehicle for moving data that we utilize. And then every type of technology of one form or another for dealing with data. So the ubiquity of being able to apply this technology irrespective and separate from the engine itself was a real big deal, because a lot of times, the encryption is carried on a disk or on one of the other technologies. So that independence and that portability was a big deal. And the other is just the ease of application, right? I was actually, to be totally honest, I was a little skeptical at first. That's why I wanted to do some testing to see how it could be that you could have such pervasive uh, encryption at in all circumstances, still be able to interact and query the data, but still maintain that encryption. Just seemed like too good to be true. And so we tested it, and it works, and it's fantastic. And it's just, I mean, for us, it's really been a differentiator for working with healthcare organizations in particular, but marketers and like we're working with some of the biggest retailers in the US, and they're thrilled about the comprehensiveness of the security, right, that the encryption provides. So, and the ease of use is phenomenal. So
Wow, great.
those
Thank
are
you.
the things, yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
I think that the world is going to be a better place when information about consumers can come together in the right way, in the right time, in the right trusted hands by marketers that use it the right way. That makes the consumer experience better. It lowers everyone's costs. It helps us reduce prices. It just makes everything better in terms of how this new milieu around marketing works. And yet I see CIOs and CTOs, I spend a lot of time talking to them to try to learn about how to do it better for myself here. I hear them spending lots of money and spending lots of time creating, in essence, what becomes legacy. They create these constructs that cost a lot of money and are hard to maintain in order to sort of approach the trusted way of sharing information with partners. And it's a huge problem. It's only going to get bigger as we know, as consumers demand us to be able to share information. And I really enjoy seeing emerging technology entrants like Sotero step into the void to solve big industry problems like that. That's how the world gets to be a better place. So that's why I'm here. That's
great. Oh, that's great. Well, and jumping off that idea of new technologies and making the world a better place, you also touched, Pat and George, you've been talking about healthcare, about how data is really the lifeblood of every company. Like every industry is a data industry, no matter what you do. I'm reading an interesting book right now, and it's got a lot of great stories in it. And one of them was about how healthcare is changing, and people in healthcare are being encouraged not to ask just what ails you, but what do you want? What do you want in care? And when you think about that, that gets back to this need that people have. They want their services personalized. I don't want you to just help me with my cancer, but help me deal with my cancer in a way that matters to me and lets me live my life or end my life in a way that is personal to me. And I think consumers want to give us all that information that we need to do that, but they're a little bit scared sometimes about how well we'll keep that data. But the point there is there's a lot going on that's exciting. So I'd love to jump into, with what's going on with data, with what's possible with AI, with, if we could do more secure data sharing, what are the really interesting trends you're watching the things that you're most excited about changing in our industries.
Well, I'll go. I've got a few things. One of the trends that we're seeing that, of course, is data enabled, is this idea of being able to actually manifest the message irrespective of channel in real time. So the only channel that is typically used that's a little problematic is SMS, because there's a limitation to the technology. But even emails, for example, we can actually land personalized content at the moment of open. So if you think about that, if we can actually take every single experience, whether it's on the web or at a call center or engaged with a person in a retail setting or whatever the channel may be, your mobile phone app, whatever it is, and perfectly land that personalized message at that moment, with a clear understanding of context and intent, the difference in the reaction of customers is astronomical. And I mean that to the extent that with a number of our clients, we have become their #1 revenue generating application. And so that partly speaks to our technology, which I'm always happy to talk about, but it also speaks to the availability of that data. If you don't have that data, you can't do all that magic, right? And that's really the key, is being able to get the data, bring all those sources together, and have them at the ready, so that if you're driving someplace and you've crossed some boundary that I have set in the application to trigger off a message every time you get near a Dunkin' Donuts, for example, and that's something that's beneficial to you that you've asked for, well, then that's exactly what we should deliver. And that ability to really tailor and personalize every single experience in that real precious zero moment when they want it is what I'm real excited about, because it's like unlocking a level of ambition in marketers that wasn't there before. Everybody kind of felt they did what they could with the technology and the data, but they were kind of living inside the constraints. And we found that with our technology and the ability to bring all that data together and bring it to the forefront and enable all those experiences, real magic happens. And I think it's just a really positive. Think of, you just went to the store and you bought a pair of jeans at the Gap, for example, and you get home and you've got an email there for that same pair of jeans. We've all had that experience, that redundancy. Well, that's the kind of thing we can completely eliminate, right? That redundancy, any of that friction that's in that system, to eliminate it is really a great level of experience that companies can provide in any industry to their clients.
Great.
And their customers.
Yeah. Pat, anything you're really excited about? I mean, I think that those are, George, I'm excited about those things too, because I think anything that reduces customer effort is huge as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was inspired listening to what George was saying there. I watch for great companies that are able to increase the value of their communications with their customers, with better informed customer experiences, with thoughtful and maybe even clever use of, but trustful use of information. And every time a customer experience is great and helpful, information is behind it. And we all respond to those great experiences, and we also recoil from the creepy ones. And marketers need to sort of get that in their mind. And everything we've been talking about here is how technology can drive that and ensure it, and keep people within regulatory requirements. But the regulatory requirements in my mind are we shouldn't be near those guards. If we're there, we're already in harm's way. We need to think about the trust we build with our customers. We need to build technology that can capture those trusted relationship parameters that our customers provide us. And then we need to use their information thoughtfully with others and be able to do that consistently at scale. And as we were talking before there, it's not just about address matching anymore. The way we interact with our environment and other marketing information providers, which is everyone, requires great technology, scalable technology, cloud-based technology. And I'm excited by that. I think I'm watching for that as a business leader, as a technology leader, and then as a consumer as well.
Great. That's great. Thank you. You got me thinking a little bit too, this personalization at scale. I remember in the cybersecurity industry being with a panel of CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, and asking them what they liked in their interactions with vendors. And I was really surprised that every single one of them said, you should do a bunch of digging and research on me, and you should know me before you call me. You should know what school I went to. You should know all these things. And so I think that when CISOs want that, I think, oh, everybody really wants personalization. So as you're saying, that level of personalization is hard to do cost effectively and at scale without technology, right? And having that technology. And I think AI is going to play into this. So there's these great things happening that I think will let us get to that really personal level with people in a way that they want. But there's probably some trends that are a little worrying on the flip side of that. What are the trends that you worry the most about, where you're worried that marketers and other industries might not be thinking about these things enough and planning for, these future trends to make sure they can get ahead of them?
Consumer PII security breaches, hands down. They set back entire industries with one bad actor all the time. We know about them. They're front page news. People lose their careers over them, and hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars of losses occur, and they're avoidable. They're avoidable. Now, the bad guys are good, and the bad guys get better faster than the good guys get better, which has always been something that has amazed me. But we can't cut corners. And in this cost-conscious world, it's easy to make a decision to cut corners and justify it, and we can't. And if I were to leave this audience with one thing, is this is not an area for you to cut corners. And I know we've been talking a lot about building these bespoke systems. Bespoke systems, in a way, are cutting corners because you're creating something once. You're not going to be able to maintain it the way you want. A year from now, whatever you built in that special pyramid of new special technology for your relationship with partner X is going to be old and is going to have holes in it. And we can't be reacting to security issues because we can lose our business, full stop. And so the security breach is probably my biggest worry.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I would say it's a little bit of the converse of what Pat said, is that I think a lot of marketers that we work with are accustomed now to looking for a SaaS solution to everything. And they think it's a real panacea, right? Oh, they're going to take the responsibility, they'll take the indemnity, they want to push off all of the risk associated with their activities off to somebody else. And a lot of companies are willing to take that on, but it's just not realistic, right? At some point, you as a brand have to understand that so many SaaS companies that are out there are actually not adhering to your best practices and your security levels, and so that has to be well understood, because there's I think who was it? Somebody did a poll or a survey and posted it on LinkedIn. Scott Brinker did one on LinkedIn, and what was it? I think it was, he did a survey about SaaS companies and what level of security they maintain, and do they adhere to the enterprise security levels. And less than 50% of those interviewed maintained up to 75% of the security practices of the organization. So I think that's the cloud has brought a lot of wonderful things to us, but it's not a reason not to pay attention to the details, right? I think everybody has to be very focused on what's going on and how it's being done and so on, because it can become a real shortcut, like you were saying, Pat. It can be, leaning on somebody else worrying about it can be a little treacherous at times. And that's one of the things McKinsey said. It's like, look, use cloud, use SaaS, use all of it, but be careful with the crown jewels. And those crown jewels are the data. And that's always a question of where that data is going to go and how it's going to be used.
2 points. I'll double down on what you were saying. Cloud doesn't equal secure.
Yep.
Right? AWS and Azure and GCP offer great cloud technology security options we can build on, but they also they need us to build on top of them and do stuff that keeps us specifically consumed. Because if we can get it easily into the cloud, so can the bad guys. So cloud doesn't equal secure is one thing. The second thing here is that George, when you talk about some of the risks that people can see here with SaaS providers, makes me think about those special situations we build with certain partners. They are by definition security risks. And while they're secure today, they're almost certainly not secure tomorrow. And so the double-edged sword of SaaS providers or third-party companies that provide services in the space is it's their job to actually keep up with those things and keep them scalable and actually transitioning to the new patches and the new technology. So I shudder to hear about that. You're right about SaaS providers, but I also look to them with a higher expectation that they're going to do better than something I might do in a customized way for myself.
Those are great points. I mean, I think certainly a lot of cloud providers do a really great job, but we still end up we're ultimately responsible for our data and our customers' data, any way you slice it, I think is a really important thing. So
the only point I'll add to that was we certainly should be, as like organizations, be responsible for the security thing. The tools and the technology hasn't been available. That's been one of the big issues.
Yeah.
So
they're coming.
I mean,
coming now. Yeah. I think you guys are doing a lot there.
That has been part of the issue, right? I mean, like you heard Pat and George articulate very well the complexity and even the usefulness and the evolution of technology and capabilities, but the security framework and the tool sets haven't kept pace.
Right. But that's really why I think you, Purandar and Shanti and the team said, well, we got to do something so you can secure your data no matter where it is.
Exactly.
Cloud, not cloud, on-premise.
Be in control of your customers' security and privacy.
Yes, which ultimately your customers expect you to be, right? I mean, they really do. So, all right, that's great. So we do have some questions coming in. Totally different tack than I think where we just were. And so one of the questions is, what is the most prevalent third-party publicly available data that is often joined with private first-party marketing data for projects and for customers?
Let me take a shot at that. There isn't one category of third-party publicly available data. It depends on which industry you're talking about. I mean, census data is probably one of the most common data sets that's consumed, right? And that depends on what you're trying to do with it. It could be for a store opening. It could be for demographic analysis, that's one category. Then you have publicly available medical research information or genomic data that's used in the medical thing. So I wouldn't say there's one. There's multiple ones, but they all eventually come down to the same thing. Once you append it or connect it with something that's private, you have a security responsibility to keep the data protected.
Great. All right. That's great. Thank you. Okay. Well, I'm watching our time. I think we are there. Any last thoughts that any of you want to share with everyone before we come to an end? And we'll pop up. I know there's another survey to pop up. And while we're talking, it might be good to pop that up because this is for us to get some feedback so that we can make sure if we host our next fireside chat, we're really helping people with some of the things that they want to know about, et cetera. So let's do our parting thoughts for today.
I'll shoot mine out there. I'm so glad to be on this discussion and to be talking about Sotero. The first time I was involved in building some sort of a security construct, I thought, wow, well, I'll never have to do this again. This is such a unique situation. Let's just build it and get past it so we can get into the good stuff. And then all of a sudden there was a second and a third and so on and so forth. And really this has been over the last, many years of my career. These things are going to become a way of life if they haven't already. And so cloud-based capabilities that provide the secure environments for us to do great things, clever things as marketers, it's a big deal. And so I think this is a very a conversation that's, as you said at the top of the call, right in time with what we need to be talking about. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'll mention a couple things. One, I'm also, first of all, thank you. Really appreciative of the opportunity to be here, and really love the partnership we've developed with Sotero and the benefit it's bringing to our clients. What I would pass along is one, don't be held back by fear. There are ways of doing anything your imagination can conceive. Be ambitious, push the envelope, and go for it. Because I work with so many companies that are just afraid to move forward, and there's so many things they can do that it's a real shame when they don't do it. And this is one of the technologies that I think really enables that freedom to go do it. And the other is, a lesson I learned early in life is, it's all about the fundamentals, or translated into, you can't defy the laws of physics. And so always remember the basics, and when someone says something's too good to be true, it probably is. So always understand what you're doing, but don't let fear rule you. Be ambitious.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Purandar, any last thoughts to share?
No, I do have a thing. Well, first of all, very appreciative of Pat and George for being a part of us. As George was talking about, be ambitious and be brave. I was thinking about 3 years ago with Shanti when we were thinking about starting this company. I completely agree, but we're really thankful that we have you to help guide and craft our offering. That has been incredibly helpful, and I think at the end of the day, it'll result in a better product for everybody.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and Pat and George and Purandar, thank you for sharing your experiences and insights here around data privacy and protection, as well as data sharing, so we can bring the two together and give the world secure and fabulous personalization.
Carol, thank you very much.
All right. Take care, everyone.